Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. Before we start, if you can quickly add into the comments if you can hear me well and from where you are joining, so maybe we can wait for a few minutes for more people to join, and then we will start. Okay, we will start today's presentation. We're going to focus on the final of the World Cup, Spain's match against Argentina, and provide a post-match analysis using skill corner tracking data. So when we look into the FIFA post-match report, we see that for Spain, 4-1-2-3 has been reported as their starting lineup formation, and for Argentina, they had 4-4-2. What you want to do is pick the tracking data that Skill Corner has provided, where you can see on the right side, we have access to the players and the ball's coordinates 10 frames per second. And this is exactly the build-up moment to the cross that Pedro had, and then Nico Williams header and the Ferran Torres finisher. So that's how Spain scored the goal in the extra time and won the competition. What you want to do is that pick this data and try to just replicate what I did during my PhD, identification of team tactical formation and player position in association football, to see whether the formations we saw for each team reported in the post-match report by FIFA reflects what has happened on the pitch. And the idea simply is that for each in-play frame, we impose a graph on the 10 outfield players of one team that are playing from bottom to top. We call this graph shape graph. We color the nodes with the vertical and horizontal levels. The vertical levels are from dark blue to dark red. That means whether the player is playing in the back line to the front line, and the horizontal colors are from dark brown to dark green, whether the player is in the left channel, left central channel, right central channel, or right channel. So each player has, let's say, two colors in each moment, and these pair of colors tell you the position of the player. For example, a player who has been colored dark blue and light green based on this 5x5 matrix, that translates to being in the back line, on the right center channel, or simply the right center back. So now what you want to do first is to look into the common media widget that you probably are familiar with, the average locations of players, and take these graphs and provide, let's say, an average shape to see what we see maybe with those averages, how that compares with the formations of data providers. So when we do that for the effective time, so when the ball is in play for Argentina, until the first substitution that they make, and just provide the frequent shape graphs with the players located in the average locations. This is, let's say, the visualization we end up with. And you can compare this with like the arrangement that FIFA has reported, the 4-4-2. I think what is here interesting to see based on these averages is that a number 15, for example, is playing more in an advanced role compared to number 7. So it's not really a symmetric 4-4-2, if you want to say it's a 4-4-2. And also maybe what else that we need to notice is the as a result, the space that you can see around number 10 Messi. But what if we use phases of play? So for example, when the team had the ball and when they didn't have the ball, I think the picture can become both more clear, but also it can become a bit confusing also at the same time. So in position, you can see that the visualization, maybe this looks more like a 4-3-3 with a single defensive midfielder. So we can maybe say number 3, 6, and 13, and 4 were the back line players. Number 24 was the single defensive midfielder. 20 and 7 were the two attacking midfielders in front of him, and then the 3 players on the front line. But also at the same time, this 4-3-3 is not really a symmetric 4-3-3, because here, for example, they have a left wing, but they don't really have a right wing. They have a right center forward, number 10. And what if we look for out of position? I think the out of position, the 4-4-2 becomes more clear. And that's maybe how you can summarize Argentina's arrangement until the first substitution. What about Spain? We follow the same idea. And here you can see the arrangement when the ball was in play. And when we use phases of play, maybe more or less the picture we have for the effective time is very similar to the picture we have for in position. And that the reason is that the majority of the time Spain had the ball. So that's why these two visualizations look similar. I think what is maybe interesting here to see that really that wide aspect that you see for Spain when they have the in possession of the, when they are in possession of the ball. But also what is interesting is that FIFA had 4-1-2-3, but maybe here maybe it's more clear to say that were playing with two defensive midfielders, number 16 and 8, and number 10 was really that lone attacking midfielder for them. But there is one big problem with these average locations, and that is that it's an average. So for example, if we look for maybe player 8 for Spain, let's say, just as an assumption, that maybe he spent around half of the time really in the front line, and the other half of the time he was spending in the back line. And if you take the average, you will basically end up being here, and that's just a consequence of taking the average. So that's why these averages can be also really misleading, what we showed so far. So to get maybe a better picture, we are going to go back to the players and the colors that we assigned to infer the positions. So we pick a player from Argentina, number 10. For each frame, we have 25 possibilities to assign the position. So what we can do, we can go over the whole match time and just compute what percentage of the time we have inferred to see this player in any of these cells. So for example, in this case, Messi, he was around 31% of the time in the right center forward, around 6.5% of the time right attacking midfield, around 20% of the time in the right forward position. And that's how you can come up with the distribution of the positions that we have observed Messi to be in, instead of only relying on one average location. So now we go back to the formation that FIFA has reported, the 4-4-2, and just arrange each starting player from Argentina's position map accordingly. And this is, let's say, the visualization we end up with. Now we can see which players maybe are deviating from the location that FIFA has suggested. For example, it's clear when we look into the left midfielder for Argentina, number 15, Gonzalez. He shows a different profile than number 7. So, and that was also what we saw in the average locations. So we have number, let's say, 9, number 10, the 2 forward players, the 4 midfield players, where we could see basically the asymmetrics from the player on the left midfield to the right midfield. And maybe the players in the back line, we can argue that they are more or less in the right spot. We can follow the same idea with the phases of play. So when we look for in position, this is let's say, the visualization we end up with. And I think here it's really clear that the fullbacks from Argentina were really going up high on the pitch, and more clearly, number 4 was going more advanced than number 3. When it comes to number 24, you can see he was dropping more than the number 20, and also number 15 was really on the front line to the left. So they were playing maybe kind of 4-3-3, we can say, where they had the focus on the left side for the attack. What about the out of position? I think the out of position, we can argue that the 4-4 seems to be a good, let's say, representation. Looking into the opponent of Argentina, Spain, 4-1-2-3. And this is, let's say, the arrangement we end up with. So we said that maybe instead of 4-1-2-3, we need to say that number 8 and number 16 were those players as a double pivot. And I think here from this picture, it becomes clear that these 3 players in midfield, they were not operating from the same level. So you can clearly see that number 16 was more defensive. Number 10 was really that attacking midfield with a tendency to go to the right. And number 8 was somewhere in between. So maybe that's also difficult to say whether 8 was the defensive pair for number 16 or he was the attacking pair for number 10. But looking into the players in the back line, I think, and also the front line, and number 15, 21, and 19, we can argue that having them in those locations is a good choice. Going to the in position, I think the picture becomes a bit more clear that maybe in position, we can say that they were playing really with one single defensive midfield, number 16, Rodri. Still not clear to say number 8 was really the attacking pair for number 10, but still somewhere in between. So that's a bit difficult to still here say that. What about out of position? I think more or less the same picture. What we can just observe that the wingers from Spain were dropping more. So let's go back to the colors that we had, because what we want to do now is provide a dynamic view over the match time, because what we saw before was just a static label trying to summarize how the starting players for one team, let's say, represented the formation of the whole team up to the substitution moment, the first substitution. But we know that the game went to the extra time. You had a lot of events taking place, like the substitutions, we had the red card, we had the hydration break. So we want to just have maybe a full picture of how the match really has unfolded. So we pick a player, Rodri from Spain, and we just visualize the colors we observe for him over the match time, and that's, let's say, the visualization we end up with. And what you can see here clearly is that number 16, based on the colors and the 5x5 metrics, he was mainly spending a lot of time on the light blue level. That means the defensive midfield. And when it comes to the horizontal level, it was mainly light green, but also a lot of time gray. So that translates to the right center and center. So based on these color pairs, we can say central defensive midfield or right defensive midfield, where the cells or positions he was operating from. So we have this visualization. What we can see that there is a gap. The first gap is the moment Spain makes a substitution, but Rodri is still on the pitch. The second gap is another moment, a substitution for Spain, still Rodri is on the pitch. And the last gap is the last round of substitutions for Spain. And this is the moment that Rodri was taken out. And number 18, Zubimendi, comes in as a replacement. And you can here clearly see that Zubimendi was following more or less the same position that Rodri was playing from. I think from this visualization, you can also observe that there are some moments that Rodri drops back to the back line because of the dark blue color, and sometimes going to the front line because of the light red or maybe red color you can see, but they are really happening really rarely. So now we can use these visualizations that we have computed for each starting player from the left to the potential substitution on the right, stack them all for Spanish players, and this is like a CT scan picture you end up with, where you can see how basically all the players have interacted with each other in terms of positions. We have here some, I think, interesting moments like the clock. This is the moment that the hydration break has happened. The substitution signs you can see here are the moments that the opponent, Argentina, has made the substitution. You have the halftime break annotated. You have the full time. You have here a red card. This is the moment that Argentina received the red card, and also the extra time. So now maybe you can spend 1 or 2 minutes here, try to see what you can learn from this visualization, which we call the position plot. And I will just check the comments to see if there is any question up to this moment to answer. Okay, I think probably if you notice that this picture really tells us that the back four for Spain, where number 12 was the right back because of dark blue and dark green. Number 24 was the left back, mainly dark blue and dark brown. And then looking into the double pivots, you have 16, where we covered him, Rodri, and number 8, which we said it's really difficult to pinpoint whether he was the double pivot for number 16 or he was the attacking pair for Olmo. And I think the picture becomes even clear here that he was really going between the light blue, gray, and light red and red levels. So he was moving between the defensive midfield, and attacking midfield levels vertically. So he was really kind of that player who had the freedom to move between these levels. And of course, at some point, they were playing with double pivot. At some points, he was joining the attacking midfield. But we cannot really say overall they were with the 2 defensive midfielders or only 1. Number 19, the right wing, Lamine Yamal, dark blue, dark red, and dark green. So that translates to front line, right forward. Number 15, Alex Baena. He was just a winger on the left side. Dani Olmo, you can clearly see that he was a lot of times dark red, but also light red. So that means he was moving between the front line and attack midfield with the tendency to be on the right side, as you can see from the light green color. And Michael Oyarzabal, he was the lone striker, mainly dark red, and he was moving between, you can see light green, gray, light brown. So he was moving between different channels horizontally. So we don't see any reaction in the hydration break in terms of positions. When it comes to the reaction to Argentina substitution, I think it's clear that we don't see any clear reaction. And then the halftime, nothing really happens in terms of the changes maybe we observe here. So it comes to the first round of the substitution for Spain, where number 8 has been taken out, number 20 comes in as replacement, and number 21 is going out, and number 7, Ferran Torres, comes on. I think we can here really say that Spain didn't change the arrangement. They were just bringing fresh legs based on just looking into the colors. We are not relying on the names of the players because players can play in different positions in different matches. And then the second round of the substitution, it comes really quickly, where they take out number 10 and they bring in number 6. And also number 15 goes out and number 17 comes in. Again, just bringing fresh leg. And then we have the red card for Argentina. And I think it's clear and interesting to see that after the red card, you don't see any reaction from maybe Spain. I think maybe the only part that we may argue is that number 24, Marco Correa, was going maybe a bit more high, but I think that was also the pattern he was showing before the red card, so we cannot really relate it to the red card. So it comes to the last substitution round for Spain, where they make 2 substitutions. So number 16, Rodri, goes out and Zubimendi comes in. We covered this part. And then number 14, the left center back, goes out and Eric Garcia comes in. And as you can see, dark blue and light brown, that translates to a left center back. So overall, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 substitutions for Spain because the match went to the extra time. They had 1 extra substitution than the usual 5 you would see in the World Cup. And that's more or less the arrangement that they played. What about Argentina? Before that, I think you can find the animation of the tracking data gold that we showed also in the beginning of this presentation below the post in the comments. Now, going to Argentina, and this is, let's say, the picture we end up with. I think it's really difficult for Argentina. I also had some difficulties or struggled to find out what was the overall arrangement because they were changing a lot. And also you can see here a lot of colors are fluctuating. So when we look into the backline, let's say start with that because maybe that can help us to go step by step. You can see number 4, the right back, 3, the left back, and 13 and 6, the center back pairs. When it comes to the midfield, number 7 was on the right side. Number 24 was to the left of him, but he was a bit more defensive. Number 20 was to the left of number 24, but a bit more advanced. And then it comes to number 15, which based on these colors, you can see he was moving a lot between the dark red color, but also the gray color. And that's why maybe we can say it's something between 4-4-2 or 4-3-3. Here I put 4-4-2, but you saw also in the averages, we saw it was something in between. That's the nature of having an asymmetric formation. So it's you cannot easily pinpoint it to one specific formation. It was something between 2 different formations, but we can describe it as a way that Argentina had the tendency and preference to overload the left wing part of the pitch where they were having number 15 to be on that side. And number 7 was, let's say, more defensive on the right side compared to number 15. So it comes to the hydration break, no clear reaction, I would say. It comes to the first substitution. Martinez was taken out at the left center back, and they bring in Otamendi. You can clearly see Otamendi was continuing on the left center back. So it comes to the halftime. In the halftime, there is a reaction. You can clearly see that number 15 was taken out. Nico Gonzalez, who was playing as a left wing, more or less, and number 5, Paredes, comes on the pitch. The colors for Paredes are mainly light blue, but also dark blue. These are the moments he was dropping back to the back line. So he was acting, let's say, as this defensive midfielder for Argentina. And you can clearly see that after that, Enzo Fernandez, who was, maybe we can say in the first half, operating from that position, he was going more advanced. And then again, comes to the second half, number 20, he goes more to the left side. He was not really feeling the position of number 15 because he was not to the touchline, as you can see, to the same level in terms of the dark brown color. But also what else we can say here is that it's still difficult to say what was the formation, but we can describe the individual players' position, whether we want to say this was a 4-4-2 or it was a 4-1-2, 4-1-3-2. Maybe it really doesn't matter. We can use these colors to profile individual players' behavior on the pitch. So the next round of the substitution for Argentina, just taking out the right back, bringing another right back, number 26 for number 4. And more or less the game is ongoing. The last round, one substitution round before the last one for Argentina, number 7 is going out, De Paul, and number 17 comes in, Simeone. You can clearly see that Simeone, when he comes in, he seems to be maybe playing more advanced, beyond the front line. So maybe here it seems that they have switched that preference that they had in the beginning of the match to the left channel to the right channel. And I think the key moment in the game, if you watch the match, is the moment that Argentina received the red card. That's also why you can see that the time series for number 24, Enzo Fernandez, was, let's say, discontinued. So he was not on the pitch anymore. And this is the moment that you can clearly see that after that, there are some changes for Argentina. So after that, number 9 is dropping more. So he is dropping from the attacking line to one line before, and he goes to the left side. And that's maybe the change and reaction that Argentina needs to make. I think it's interesting to see that Argentina has not made a substitution here. They reacted by changing the position of the players who are already on the pitch. They didn't bring a defender yet. They basically here managed to go to the extra time. They finish and they continued in the match. Close to the end of the first half in the extra time, they make a substitution. And this is the moment that they take out Juan Alvarez and bring in number 2, Senesi. And you can clearly see from this moment on, Argentina is switching to a back 5. And this is maybe exactly what we saw from England in their semifinal against Argentina. We can here clearly see that Argentina is also following the same behavior. In this case, the context is different. It's going to the extra time, and also they are one man down. So they make it back 5, a 5-2-2, based on just looking into the colors. And of course, they cannot end the game with a 0-0, so they concede the goal. And that's how we can summarize Argentina's, let's say, formation in this game. we said that it was really difficult, Argentina in this case, to use formations to describe what they were doing. Maybe it was easier to describe what each individual player was doing. But overall, if you want to say, I think it's clear that they, in the end of the game, they switched to a back five. And in the beginning, we said, depending on the fate of the game, 4-4-2, 4-3-3, that could have been something to use. And if we want to bring, let's say, the both teams' arrangement together, we can use something that is called position and movement diagram, introduced in chapter 5 of my PhD thesis, where you can here have a special summarization of both teams. We need to use phases of match segments because with the substitution, new players are introduced and the shirt colors differ. So that's why we need to have different intervals and different visualizations. Looking into the first one until the first substitution where number 6 is taken out, you can maybe here clearly see that we have this back four for Argentina. We talked about that it's difficult to say whether it's 4 midfielders for Argentina or 3 midfielders and 3 attackers, because this number 15 was really somewhere in between these two lines. And that was different, clearly seen when we were using phases of the play. And the 2 players on the front line, clearly number 9 and 10. When it comes to Spain, the back four, we said that maybe we say these are the 2 double pivots, but number 8 had really the freedom to go up and down. Number 16 was really the staying in the defensive midfield. Number 10 was clearly the attacking midfield. So, and they had this triangle in midfield with or a preference to be oriented towards the right. And then it comes to the 3 players on the front line for Spain, number 21, lone striker, 15 left and 19 right. And we can keep going with these, let's say, match segments, try to see whether the picture differs or not. So this is basically the second segment of the game. It's just shorter because you have the halftime, and in the halftime there is another substitution. So the shorter maybe the segments they get, maybe they become a bit less important. Also, it depends also what has happened in that segment. But overall, I think you can say that this structure that we have used, we can use it to describe how the game has, let's say, evolved over time. And I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this series. We started almost a month ago, trying to provide post-match analysis reports, kind of using skill corner tracking data after each match. You can find the previous webinars we organized or the video clips or LinkedIn posts we had here on LinkedIn. And I think in 2 days, I will have a LinkedIn post where I will just provide a kind of a content of table with links to each individual session. So maybe it makes it easier to navigate them if you want to bookmark that for later. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the comments. I'm now going to take some time to check if there's anything there to answer if you have any concerns or questions. Okay, it seems everything is more or less clear. So that's why I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it and have a nice day, evening, or morning ahead, depending on from where you are joining. Bye-bye.